And a good afternoon to you, sir. How the heck are you?
I'm doing okay. A little light on sleep. Not sure what day it is, but that is the reality of postseason basketball. And definitely ready and able to talk a little bit about the Mavericks and Game 2.
Yes, sir. We love having you on, Tim. I mean, you're an absolute treasure for Mavericks fans, the way that you break things down and report on what's going on with this basketball team. I can assure you, it's Friday, and tomorrow there is an early game. I think it's at 2:30. So might want to make sure you get down to the AAC in time for that. But I wanted to ask you, is that an extra issue for Luka?
I mean, it's hard to say. Luka is not healthy. He's not physically right. It sucks. It objectively sucks. It sucks for the NBA. It sucks for the Mavericks. He has talked about this repeatedly, that he is playing through pain, that he is not going to be right until he really rests this knee. We are watching and we see more ailments keep getting added to this guy's body. It's ridiculous at this point. He bangs his mouth, his teeth straight into the court within 1 minute of Game 2 starting. He sprains his ankle, and that ankle has actually appeared on the injury report, and he is questionable for Game 3. Luka will play. He is a gamer. We know this. He will find ways to contribute. That's what he did in Game 2. I do worry about his physical abilities headed into Game 3. I thought that it was tenacious. I thought it was gutty. I thought he is, everything that we've come to respect and love about this player, he showed in Game 2 because he found a way. I still don't think he looked 100%. In fact, I don't think. He was not 100%. This is a player who's finding ways to be effective, to bring this team, carry this team to wins. Certainly not by himself, but by doing enough, doing what this team needs to get that crucial win on the road and in Game 2 to even this series. But unfortunately, this is a reality of the Mavericks. The rest of the postseason, certainly the rest of the series, is that Luka's going to be fighting through stuff. And that does make the journey more difficult for Dallas. And I think you have to be honest, an early start time, we'll see what it looks like. But, I can't imagine that makes it easier for him either.
Okay, do we know what the knee injury is? Is this something that will only require rest? And how much? If they could get through the series, like let's just say hypothetically in 5 and they had 5 days off, would that be good enough?
I mean, what I wondered was the 4 days off before Game 1. That's what I was really looking at. And I thought if Luka was going to get back to this, deserved MVP candidate, that level of play consistently every single game in a series, that it would show in Game 1. And I thought Game 1, he looked the most physically limited that he has since suffering the injury last series. Now, maybe it's a situation where the more he plays on it and manages it, he's actually going to respond better to it, and he's going to have a better idea of what he's capable of. It's not, they're calling it a knee sprain. And trust me, I learned a long time ago that I am not a doctor. I don't know stuff like, I'm not here to second guess. What I'll say is and this is an attempt to explain what I'm seeing for Luka. I think another injury we're very familiar with in sports is a bone bruise. Mm-hmm. Kind of something that is not physically, altering the knee, but it is affecting it. And when I watch Luka symptomatically, just to explain what I'm seeing, that's kind of what comes to mind, because he's a player who's moving laterally. He can run up and down the court, but that explosion, that lift is not quite there on his three-pointers or on his drives. So again, this is not me saying that's actually what he's suffering. He's suffering a knee sprain. The Mavericks said it. That's his diagnosis. That is what he's suffering. But if you're trying to understand, like, why does he have this bum knee, and why does he not look 100%? But why is he still on the court? And, with those two facts, I think that explains, or maybe might be an explanation that kind of gets at, this is a player who's physically, not quite where we want him to be, where it would be best for him to be, for everybody involved, the NBA included, just casual fans who enjoy watching greatness. But that's kind of what he's suffering from. And unfortunately in his own words, it's not going to go away even with four more days of rest.
Tim, if you could pick one, no offensive turnovers or limited turnovers there. Their bigs playing better, the corner threes, or better rebounding. Which contributed the most to their victory yesterday?
I think I would probably say
or
the
add
turnovers.
your own. Add your own if you like. I'm just throwing it out there for you.
Well, I think it's I'm going to pick a couple. It's impossible to say which is the absolute biggest. It was the turnovers and it was the 3-pointers going down. Those two, I think, were the biggest factors. This is a team that can shoot, but they traded a lot of shooting and offensive competence. Competence is a little harsh. Offensive upside from their role players. They traded that for the defense that we saw in game 2 and we saw in the last series and down the stretch of the season. And so when those players come out and they do hit those shots, and in game 1, and it carried over into game 2, Oklahoma City dared those role players to shoot them.
Yeah, sure.
They sagged way off into the paint. And what you have to do in that situation, and what PJ Washington specifically did, is keep shooting them. I don't know which guys of you still kind of play some pickup or get on the court. I've been playing a little bit more recently. When you get an open shot, first time you're going to shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
Make or miss. There's such an instinct in your head that the next time out, you especially if you made it, like that is to set up the pump fake and the drive. What Dallas's role players have to do, and what PJ Washington, what I thought was so impressive, is that they kept giving him open threes, and so he kept taking it every single time. There was not a second guessing of, oh, what can I do? Can I do something else with it? No. The shot that he was given was the open three, and he kept shooting them, and they went in. And that offensive talent, that upside from him as a player that has never quite been consistent, he really showed it in game 2. And I thought, that was just a standout performance. Even if Dallas were to lose the series, I thought that was the type of moment that makes you excited going into the next season, because this is a player who's now part of the team's core and is going to be here at least 2 more years. He's under contract that long.
Tim Cato with us here in the GBag Nation. I have 2 questions for you. The first one, probably the most important. What the heck was going on at Lukas' press conference, and why was somebody watching Pornhub?
Well, I was in the room for that. It was a little jarring. Look, I know this is public radio, but we have to. There was sex noises in Luka Doncic's press conference.
Very sexy.
I said it on an athletic podcast, so I guess I have reported on it, and it feels like a very silly word to use with this. My understanding is there was a teammate of Doncic who was trolling him, pranking him, who played it right outside the door of the presser, and certainly derailed things for a little bit. And Luka said something to the effect of, I hope that isn't live. So good reaction. Funny moment, funny, unusual moment, but that's my understanding of what happened.
So we can't confirm or deny that it was like maybe PJ Washington. I mean, do we have any hunch at who this was?
I was told, I don't know the player. It was also speculated of like, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. The player in question probably shouldn't be doing that. Is that something that the NBA would be like, slapping a little fine on him or something? So I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble.
Fair.
But even then, I don't actually know which player. I have some guesses.
Okay.
But I don't know which player.
We can talk off air about that, Tim. I don't want to be getting anybody in trouble either.
Yeah, or Tim, even write a story and we'll get some more subscriptions. For you.
Subscriptions at The Athletic if you want to know more.
Yeah, you want to know more.
Yeah, I'm doing investigative reporting, trying to track down what video it was.
Yes, there you go.
if we're getting real.
Speaking about Luka and maybe how healthy or unhealthy we know he's not healthy right now, but he's always been fantastic in the first quarter. Kyrie, I think, impacts the game even if he's not scoring, but his first quarter scoring numbers, I don't think he has more than 4 points in the first quarter all postseason. Is that
correct?
Concerning?
It's odd. It's interesting. I wouldn't say it's concerning because Dallas has won 5 games and lost 3 in the postseason. They found a way to win again. A lot of times when teams win and you look at a star not playing, not having a big points total, like Kyrie did in game 2, where he only had 9 points overall. You look at the performance and it's like, look at what they did. And Kyrie, didn't even have a show off game. Imagine what's going to happen when he does that. I think in this instance, game two was an example of Kyrie. I think what made Dallas successful in game two was because of Kyrie and because of the role he chose for that game. Not chose, but the role that came to him and he adapted to. He recognized it was the situation. Yes, he's going to need to score more going forward. I bet he does in game three. But he had 11 assists. That ties his postseason career high. He played sensational defense. Just absolutely absurd defensive performances. He's been doing it all postseason. That might have been his best game yet. And he was on it. He realized how much every time he ran a pick and roll that Oklahoma City was trapping and was getting the ball out of his hands. And because Dallas went into this game trying to get the role players going, knowing they needed to, they started the game with a couple of PJ Washington post-ups. Early in the game, they were not running Luka Doncic pick and rolls. A lot of the times, Luka started actions in the corner and then would come off, screens and come off, weak side action. And he would still get involved in the play. But Luka's first shot was a catch and shoot three. The play was happening on the other side of the court and the ball got to him. And so this was a purposeful thing, and Kyrie adapted to it. He made the right passes. They're going to need him. They're going to need his scoring. But I thought he allowed how Dallas succeeded in game two. I thought the way he played was absolutely fully part of that as well.
It was I think a championship performance, a legendary leadership, like what he is displaying, knowing how to perfectly complement whatever the team needs instead of trying to get
he
his.
Told me after the game he told the role players to be selfish.
Yeah.
That was the approach that he was trying to instill in them.
Man, what awesome. A beast. Yeah. Does either of these teams have a discernible edge for the rest of this series, Tim?
I hate to say it, but I think it's still the Thunder, unfortunately. Because the Thunder have adjustments. And because of where Dallas is, we've talked about the Luka injury, but the Maxi Kleber injury is just devastating for this team. He was the adjustment player on this rotation because when he came into the game, Dallas plays a fairly traditional starting lineup with a traditional center, and you look at each position and it kind of corresponds to what you would expect out of that position, at least in the modern NBA. When Maxey goes in next to a center, that's a big lineup. That's where you talk about Oklahoma City being a small team. They're not that much smaller than Dallas. They're really not when it's just starting lineup matched up against starting lineup. It's when Maxey comes in and you have that two center look. That really gives Dallas a size advantage. And then vice versa, when you can go 5 out, when you can make him the only sitter on the court, that's also a huge adjustment. They don't have that, unfortunately. And I don't think that, I don't think they want to. I don't think there's any plan to play PJ Washington as a small ball center. I was just looking up those stats. I don't have them in front of me, but PJ has played about 25 possessions as a small ball center. So basically nothing. It wasn't a look that Dallas went to all season. On the flip side, Josh Giddey is a player that Oklahoma City didn't start in the second half. He's someone they could bench. They have really capable role players all down the roster. I just still think that this is a team of adjustments. But I'll let you guys butt in and close me out. But I can also tell you real quick, like there's still a path to Dallas winning the series. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Josh Giddey stuff. Did they run him off the court? Is that something that now that we're not going to see him much longer in this series?
It's a huge question going into game three, whether Oklahoma City makes that drastic of a change, but I think it's coming. I think it's happening. I believe Giddey is minus 29 in the series. He was minus 20 in just 10 minutes in game two. Sometimes plus minuses just for a single game are not telling, but in this case it is. It's not just that he's not a shooting threat, which allows Dallas to really pinpoint their help coverages around a player that they don't respect, that they don't have to care about. That definitely helps. But they're just blowing by him on the other end, too. Giddey has been a defensive liability. There's not a lot of defensive liabilities on this Oklahoma City roster, and he has been that. And he's been someone that Dallas has attacked. And so whether he plays even fewer minutes, whether he comes off the bench, whether they do make that nuclear option to completely bench him from the start of game three, I do think that, if Dallas is, the more Dallas threatens, and it's pretty threatening to go steal home court advantage in game two, the less he's going to play in this series.
And Tim, if you got to run, you just let us know. You got to bail. But I wanted to know.
I got time.
Okay, cool. Do you think Luka was extra motivated last night due to the MVP news, or does he not care about that at all?
Um, I don't think that's a huge motivator for him. Maybe if it hadn't been Jokic,
Yeah.
but yes, Luka wants to win an MVP. I remember when he was drafted, he did something about might have been with Bleacher Report, and he kind of jokingly laid out his 5-year plan for the NBA, and win Rookie of the Year, make the playoffs, advance in the playoffs. He was saying a bunch of like get a signature shoe. He mentioned win MVP in that. I'm pretty sure if I remember right. This is something he wants. He thinks he deserves
Yeah.
at some point in his career, but I don't think that's nearly as much of a motivator as fans talking trash on the sidelines, which apparently they were throughout Game 2 to him. That's what motivates him. He doesn't care that the media, only 4 media members put him first on their ballots nearly as much as he cares about someone who he can see with his own eyes on the sidelines, talking smack. In this case, he said he thought they went too far, invoked his family, in some manner or the other, and that's what really motivates him. And as much as we talk about his injuries, and it's really unfortunate, he's not going to be 100%. As I said, this guy is a gamer. He's going to find a way. It's going to be harder to find the way, and it might not happen every single game, but he found a way in in Game 2. And this has been the case of Luka his entire career, that he's going to find a way.
Tim, did you read or hear at all about the Ringer article that came out yesterday from Howard Beck talking about the on-off? What were your thoughts on that?
I think Mavericks fans are fair to be upset at the timing and some of the tone of the piece. I will say that the concept explored by the piece, which is that Luka Doncic, is an all-time player. He is on pace to be one of the all-time greatest players in basketball history. His plus-minus numbers, out of all those all-time greats, just don't measure up in the same way. And I do believe that Howard Beck, an excellent writer, I believe the intent of his piece was to explore why that is. It's a curiosity. I do think there's a lot of interest and a lot of context that can be provided, it's almost like an academic study. Because of the timing of the piece, when it came out, it looked much more like a hit piece because of some of the anonymous quotes, that some of them which were certainly not fair and inaccurate in my view. It did look like a different type of story, but I have always been interested by this on-off stuff. There's a very good YouTube video on a channel called Thinking Basketball. The guy who runs it is called Ben Taylor. It explored the same concept a couple months ago, and I thought it did a really good job, a really interesting job, kind of exploring this just fascination about Luka and why these numbers, which for every single great player, all-time great player, are one thing, why his have not been, and why this season was the first season where it really started to click in. I think that's interesting, but as I said about the article, you drop it right after a Game 1 like that, and it's going to come off a different way, and I don't think it was fair to Luka to do that. With all respect to Howard Beck, who is a very good writer, and I don't think deserves vitriol overall, but I understand what Mavs fans feel about that piece.
I mean, it would stand to reason that you have the best supporting cast ever, and your plus minus starts to turn around. You're in your best shape, and you're more focused than you've ever been. So I think we're on the right track, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could spend 10 more minutes kind of talking about the nuances. I think that video, the Thinking Basketball video I referenced, is like 30 minutes long. It takes some time to kind of work through all the various details of it and why it might be. But safe to say that you can come to a conclusion that is not like Luka's a fake superstar. It's just like, here's a bunch of interesting factors that have contributed to this one really consistent metric, really telling metric for almost all cases, why his hasn't quite been there. And some of them are things that he is improving on this season.
I love it, Tim. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of this series, and we can't wait to talk to you next time, buddy.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.